It's May the 26th today, 2021. It's Wednesday, and I'm sitting here in front of the City Hall. And maybe if I move this camera just slightly, you're going to be able to see the City Hall. That is the City Hall of Quesnel, British Columbia. Can I see anything in there? I don't know if I can even see it. Are we just looking at the clouds? There we are. It's the City Hall. So we're sitting here in the little park that's right beside City Hall. Don't know if that was a good shot of City Hall or not, but anyways, I just finished paying my taxes, and these are just tales by Uncle Burr, I guess we can call these. City taxes. Now, there's something totally new now with city taxes. Is before you could always get your homeowner's grant done right here on the spot, and you would get the discount, of course. But now the way it is, you have to do it through homeowner grant. Starting May 2021, you will apply for your homeowner grant online with the province. Municipalities are no longer accepting applications. Program eligibility is unchanged. In order to avoid penalties and interest, apply before the tax due date. The usual thing. Learn more at GovBC Homeowner Grant. Phone 1-888-355-2700 to speak with a live agent. Of course, you may get a lot of music playing for you while this happens. And here it is, right here, as to the new procedure, including the 1-800 number. You know, is that upside down? Don't know how the camera reads it. It's upside down. I don't think it's upside down. But either way, this is how it works now. And this is how taxes are basically done. It's the taxation system. That's how it runs. And I just paid my taxes due, but the rest I have to do over the internet now. So that's another new thing that they now have invented. And of course, that's all done in the legislature. Most people don't realize that if you vote for someone, it's basically you vote somebody to be inside the legislature to make laws. And since we're now on the subject of laws, because legislature means the makers of laws, legislation. Now, what do we have in the Caribou Observer today? This is the Caribou Observer right here. Caribou Observer, today's edition. And that's the Wednesday, May 26, 2021 edition. Highway 97 set for improvements. Northern ridings at risk. Worker dies after COVID outbreak at Quesnel Reforestation Company. Etc., etc., etc. And these are just some of the news here. I can't really get too deeply into every single subject, but if you want to get more information, just go on www.thecaribouobserver.com. There you go. It's all www. Everything is www. The government wants you to go on www too. So if you don't have the internet, it's pretty hard to do anything else, even to apply for your homeowner grant now, as we just found out. Here we are. Groundwater licensing, a crisis in the making. Groundwater licensing, a serious issue. This is what David Sternhelt has an article here. All users of groundwater other than domestic users must get an application for a license into government before March 1st, 2022. Other than domestic users, in other words, all farmers and people who have businesses and so on, and running greenhouses maybe, or any other operation, or let's say if they have a swine operation or hog operation, so in case one thinks this is a partisan political issue, remember it was before the NDP was elected as government. It was a BC Liberal government that brought in this modernization of the Water Act. Well, it doesn't really matter which party has brought it in, but it seems that they're all in agreement with each other on this. So one seems to, it's kind of like this. They're all fabric together and they all work together in the legislature. So they can dispute it, they can fight it, and even as little guys can stand there with a sign on the steps of the parliament or legislature, and we can look at that option. Of course, you might be removed in not such a pleasant way, but or who knows? It's hard to know, because in our day and age, and in this pandemic age of 2021, where this has been, we won't even get into that, where you have to be very careful as to where you're standing these days, or how many people standing together, or this and that, whatever. Anyways, so now going back again to this groundwater use here. One of the major aspects of this new law is the requirement that to use groundwater, not surface water, which already had this requirement of licensing, a user other than a domestic household user must license the use. This new WSA removed the old common law right to use water riparian right. It was near your residence or on your property. Common law rights to water are replaced by a statutory rights law created by the provincial legislature, which has jurisdiction over water. Oh, there goes my taxes. They're flying away. Well, they've been paid already. It doesn't matter. The wind's blowing now. Okay. Time for our coffee now. Time for a coffee, and I'll keep on reading here about this groundwater licensing, a crisis in the making. David Zernhalt, he usually writes a pretty good article. This new WSA removed the old common law right to use water riparian right. See, there you go. Rights, law, legislature. So when people actually do that, they actually, when they vote in lawmakers. That's what they're voting in. They think, oh, everything's going to be so beautiful now, and so on and so on. Well, we have to have governments. There's no doubt about it. They have to be there, and they do. There is very many good benefits to it, but sometimes the making of many laws is not a good thing either. And so now we all go on here. This new common law rights to water are replaced by a statutory right, laws created by the provincial legislature, which has jurisdiction over water, including groundwater that is within the province. So they have jurisdiction over the water that runs under your feet. They have jurisdiction over the rainwater that falls down. In Germany, for example, we have a rainwater tax. So what is it? Masking law. Okay, I'm outside. I don't have to wear a mask. And there's no people around me or nothing, so I don't have to wear a mask. But inside you do. And this is going to be for a little while longer. We're going to have this. We've got some really nice fashionable masks now and bandanas, and which, as you can see, I picked this one up at the dollar store for $2, so that's not bad, and I picked up a whole bunch of them. But that's going besides the point now. We're getting back to this here now. It has been since the 1990s that local areas experiencing shortages or conflicts over water could apply to have a licensing area established and groundwater rights governed in that area. The reason this enabling legislation was enacted then was that under Canadian law, unless there was a regulatory regime, acts and regulations for water, there could not be restrictions on the export of water from the province. This meant that a groundwater well could be pumped for export out of BC. Yeah, like we know that big groundwater company that is actually based in Hope, BC. That's one of the, they have a big bottling plant there, and they sell lots of water. They even sell water to us for drinking and so on. And personally myself, I don't like drinking out of a bottle. It's still nice to drink out of the city has very good water here in Quesnel, British Columbia, for example. They have good water, so they do provide good water for us, and hopefully they're not chlorinating it. I've heard stories that they are, but anyways, besides the point. There's a real fear that demand for safe water would create a rush on the use of water for export. It took years of consultation with stakeholders for government to formulate and create the legislation. Now we have the legislation and regulations giving effect to much of the WSA, Water Sustainable Act, that is. Deadlines for the submission of applications have been extended, most recently from 2019 to 2022. The water users of concern here are not the households, but the industrial commercial users, including large hobby farms, commercial ranches with more than a few head of livestock, suppliers of water to subdivisions, and any other users that need water to process their product. April 2021, the Partnership for Water Sustainability in BC published a backgrounder calling for government to do more to avert this pending crisis. The 20 users of groundwater will be legally using water for their businesses. Only 4,000 of them have been put in application, leaving 16,000 at risk of not securing their water rights. This means that after March 2022, new applications will take precedence over historical groundwater users. In times of drought, and if the water table is not replenished in a drying climate, there is not protection. Of course, there's no guarantee of water for a license holder, but they will at least be in line for some water if it is there. The partnership mentioned above reminds us that it's taken 3 or more years currently to process a groundwater license application. They also suggest the way forward is to have a cabinet minister responsible for overseeing the implementation of the WSA and dedicated enhanced group of officials processing applications. So if it takes up to 3 years, that means by that time they may have changed the government again. But then the other government, which wanted to see this legislation put in the first place, probably would be favorable to it because, like I said, they're really all in agreement with each other. When it gets right down to it, it's a fabric that's knitted together. And, that's how this thing called democracy works. He shoots, he scores. It's kind of like football. See, that's why I have my 2 fingers raised. It's football, and that's where you throw your football over, and he shoots, he scores, and that's how they all get together on something eventually. In times of drought, and if the water table is not replenished in drying climate, there's no protection. Of course, there's no guarantee of water for a license holder, but they will at least be in line for some water if it's there. So make sure you have water there. You're going to be paying, it doesn't really say how much you're paying for a license though. The partnership mentioned above reminds us that it's taken 3 or more years currently to process a groundwater license application. They also suggest the way forward is to have a cabinet minister responsible for overseeing the implementation of the WSA and dedicated enhanced group of officials processing applications. They also note that it might just take some adaptation of the strategy to get the job done. After March 2022, it may be well more expensive to apply for water rights, since much of the cost is waived as an incentive to get people to apply. After March 2022, traditional users will be foregoing their present rights, which will go back into a common pool of water available for application. Go to Water Bucket e-News, once more again on the internet, e-News, for their publication on the emergency crisis around groundwater legislation implementation, April 20th, 2021, https:/waterbucket.ca/ facebook.com/WSC blog/dot. If you have further concerns, write to the Premier. David Cernhelt is a rancher and member of the Caribou Cattlemen's Association. He's not the Premier, by the way. He's also chair of the advisory committee for the Applied Sustainable Ranching Program at TRU. So there you have it. That's some of our options available. Now, what other stories do we have in here? Oh, here's a nice little story here. It's springtime and garter snakes are back. Somebody took that picture and had it posted in the Caribou Observer. They posted it. Garter snakes are harmless to us, and I'm glad I'm living up in northern British Columbia, not in the southern part where I lived, where they actually did have rattlesnakes, although I never came across one. I used to live there. My brother-in-law once got bitten by a rattlesnake, but it never went through his cowboy boots. He was wearing those and the leather boots, and the snake struck and withdrew its fangs. It only went as far as through the cowboy boots, but didn't puncture his skin. But he said it felt just like getting a really heavy blow with a 2x4, and he still had to have some emergency treatment. But garter snakes, I've held them up by my hand quite often. They're quite harmless, and they have enough poison in them to kill a small a mouse or a rat or some other little animal, but not humans, and probably not your family dog either. But they usually never do bite anything larger anyways. They just go after small mammals and so on. And what else have we got? Power of smoke. SUV caught on fire on Blackwater Road. There's another little story right there. SUV caught on fire. Oh, that's a snake picture. Yeah, right there. SUV caught on fire. Well, that's not a forest fire anyways. Landslide risk still high in Quesnel. There's a landslide over at Panorama Ridge, and actually the veterinarian's office had to be evacuated. And there has been an evacuation alert for other places as well too. 2 properties were evacuated, including the veterinary clinic. And of course, there's a newspaper here full of flyers advertising, which most story about a drug bust, Lake City drug bust. That's Williams Lake News. And here, of course, we have a beautiful picture here of Barkerville. So if you want to get away from all the humdrum of city living and just relax a little bit, where it all began. The gold rush, British Columbia gold rush, part of it, the biggest gold rush. And here's a nice little story about Barkerville. Barkerville blanketed by snow in April, the article says. So, could April snow bring May flowers to Barkerville? Well, the records for Barkerville go back to 1888. So, could very well be. While the average snowfall accumulation for April is nearly 33 centimeters according to historical climate normals from 1981 to 2010, there have been much snowier years, of course. I remember in the 1970s when I was up there, 1978, and I was just a young lad then. I was only 17 years old, and I was up there, and it was actually quite a beautiful place. So now I'm going to be closing this and say we're still living in the beautiful Caribou, and these are just some of the beautiful things that we can say is stay healthy, stay safe, enjoy the beautiful outdoors, and go fishing, whatever, and we're already socially distanced ourselves here in the caribou because we have lots of space all around us. So that's never really been an issue too much, unless you're living in a city. But just stay healthy, stay safe, have a good day.